Hello, and welcome to Actually Sustainable, the podcast for high achieving women, possibly with ADHD or similar tendencies, where we learn how to build a actually sustainable life, build and sustain one, especially with kind of recovery from burnout or preventing burnout, hopefully. Today, on episode number 6, we are going to talk about ADHD burnout loop, the kind of habit forming, and one of the reasons why ADHD folks do tend to burn out fairly often. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about what ADHD is. It's not just the little boy who's running around not able to sit still. It's significantly more complicated than that. There's a lot of more symptoms, and a lot of them are hidden, especially in women. Some of that is because of conditioning when we are little, especially back in the 70s through 90s, and still today to a big extent, but I think a little less. When boys are being rambunctious, people just go, they're just boys being boys. They're little boys, they're being little boys, right? When a girl's being rambunctious, she's does not get the same treatment. It's usually a lot more negative, and they're told to sit down, be quiet, and be a good little girl, right? I mean, boys are too, but they tend to get more of a easy pass. And so females in general in common American culture are culturally conditioned to be quiet or to sit still, to not be that loud, rambunctious, interrupting kind of person. Some people still are because they can't not be that, but then they get in trouble a lot more, and they're shamed a lot more, and they get a lot more negative contexts, especially if they try to do anything in kind of a more masculine, traditionally masculine role. They're going to be pointed out a lot more. That's just universal with females in our society, but it's really, really complicated. And so for those of you who are in your midlife-ish era and you have kids who are maybe getting diagnosed now, and you're like, oh, those symptoms, maybe I have those symptoms. That's how a lot of 40-something-year-old moms are getting diagnosed in their 40s, is because they're recognizing those symptoms. And a lot more, it's often the inattentive aspect because your mind wanders. But what happens with ADHD, the basic gist of it, is that dopamine, which is one of the neurotransmitters in our brain responsible for things like motivation, time management, and executive functioning, which is like, doing the mail on time and getting your bills in on time. And it's as I'll put the book in the show notes, but there's a newer book that's out, and the author likens the prefrontal cortex, which does the executive functioning, to a butler. So anything a butler would do, like or maybe a good secretary, executive assistant, would give you the tasks to do for the day and tell you when to leave to get to whatever on time, etc. So the dopamine helps manage all of that. Plus serotonin is another one that's also kind of part of that whole system that helps keep you positive and happy. And sorry, my cat is playing with the case. Sorry, get down. The cat was playing with it, so we were bouncing a little bit there. Sorry. And then she ran away. I was going to introduce her, but she ran away. You'll see her eventually. The prefrontal cortex, all of that stuff, all of those neurotransmitters, they're not regulated. There's overall a slightly lower amount of dopamine in the brain, and it doesn't react the same way. It's sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. It's a dysregulated amount of dopamine. So sometimes you have enough motivation to do things. Other days you're like, I cannot get out of bed unless there is a literal fire trying to, catch me. Or I'm already late for work. Now I have the motivation to get up and go to work because it's panic mode, right? So that's because of that lower level of dopamine, and we can get increased levels by accomplishing things. Checking things off on our to-do lists, or, there's a whole bunch of things that'll raise our dopamine. But one of the other kind of hidden things is, one, mind wandering. Two, super high creativity. We can have a lot this way. A lot of creatives, a lot of authors, musicians, comedians tend to be very, here's the kitty, often they are ADHD because that's who can think outside of the box, right? Um, or not right, but they can think out of the box more than a neurotypical person probably would. So there's a lot of creativity. That's how we get ourselves out of fixes that we put ourselves in when we do things at the last second, right? Um, but it can also lead to very imaginative worries and anxieties and things like that. So a lot of times, especially adult women, get diagnosed with anxiety instead of ADHD, and maybe they have both. But often, from my experience, I don't have actual clinical data to back this up, but from my experience, anecdotally, and talking to patients and reading articles and books about it, the the anxiety is often a stem from the ADHD. We're anxious we're going to forget our keys. We're anxious we're going to forget that bill. We're anxious because of X, Y, Z. And our amazing creativity, imagination, it can create all sorts of weird scenarios, right? Like the monster in the closet, or as my kid even just the other night was talking about the giant dark black dog that was hiding in his closet, and and I'm like, there's no dog in there. He's like, logically, I know that, but my brain tells me it's there, and I'm like, okay. So then we worked through using. I'm like, okay, that's your amazing creativity. So let's use that amazing creativity to change it, right? And then we pretended that big black dog that was hiding in the closet that he couldn't convince himself wasn't there was actually a cupcake hunting dog. So all it did was sniff out cupcakes. And so it was totally cool that he had that dog in the closet, because if it found cupcakes, it was going to let him know where the cupcakes were. And then he might be able to get a cupcake at some point, because that's what that dog did. So even though it was there, it was a cupcake one. So that's kind of how we used our imagination. So with that, that's some of the pieces. Plus there's emotional dysregulation, the ups and downs, super fast frustration issues. So there's frustration intolerance. The littlest things, like my kids know to not come to me if they have password issues with any of their electronics. I'm like trying to figure out how to connect their Microsoft accounts to their tablets so that they can sign into this and that, and then also having to get Nintendo accounts and Epic accounts, and like I'm just like, oh my goodness, please get old enough to do this all for me. Like I cannot handle it. Just not that I can't. It's not that I don't understand. It's not that I don't mind doing it. It's that it just gets so frustrating. You have to put in 3 different passwords for 3 different things. My tolerance is just not there, right? So there's a lot of that. Lots of different angles and aspects to ADHD in general. It's not just that hyperactive little boy who can't sit still. If you are concerned and considering that you might have it, please go seek professional assessment. That's not something that you can diagnose by yourself. And even if you are going, yeah, I probably have it, like I did for 40 years, going and officially getting that diagnosis can be very eye-opening and help. And then you can go kind of do more research, and you're not constantly doubting, going, am I ADHD or am I just really bad at life, right? Because those are the very sad but kind of honest things that a lot of us say to ourselves. What this does so often to people, especially as high-achieving females, we have this tendency to go, ooh, and the creativity is there, and we kind of think through all of these things, and they all sound so cool, and they all sound so exciting. And so we sign up for a whole bunch of things, and then we have to actually maintain those things. And we don't realize how much time, we're going to be time blind to how much time those things are going to require. And we don't realize how much energy they're going to individually require. Plus, we have all that cognitive load and decision-making fatigue that we have with the rest of life. And we've signed up for way more things than we should be doing. And it just kind of builds up, and we go, I can't do this anymore. And you kind of burn out and you crash. And so then you end up having this kind of cycle where after a while you're kind of down, you've crashed for a bit, and you just aren't functioning because your brain just kind of turns off, because again, that's kind of one of those things ADHD brains do, is we're either on or we're off. We're totally into something or we're totally against it, or we're super happy or we're super sad. It tends to be fairly like that. And another potential misdiagnosis is bipolar type 2. A lot of women get told that because of that kind of emotional lability. And it's not so much label, it's that it goes on or off. And it's not exactly the same thing as bipolarism. So again, talk to an experienced, trained person to help you kind of work through those differences, because there are differences, and they will help you kind of tease those out. But if you get caught in that cycle, you are much more likely to get burned out in that thing. But often we're capable, right? We're capable, we're high achieving, so we'll stick it out. We will do our best, but it takes so much energy for us to be able to do that. And it takes and drains our energy and pulls us down, even though, yes, we will maintain it past our point of ability, right? And we are burned out, but we keep going because what other option is there? And then we burn out worse. And so it happens faster, it happens more often, and it's just a reality, unfortunately, in our modern society with our high goals and with our, neurospicy brains, that it's very common. So we can end up getting that emotional exhaustion, which just drains us from everything else. We get the brain fatigue, we get all of the other symptoms of burnout. So again, if you're concerned, maybe you have one of these diagnoses, talk to a professional about it, get your diagnosis, and then look at your life, whether you're getting the diagnosis or not, whether you already have the diagnosis or not. Look around and look at your life, be aware of some of the places that you might do this, and kind of go, maybe I shouldn't, right? When you get that idea of, I'm going to sign up for this committee and that committee, and oh, that one sounds good, and oh, I'm going to sign up for this course too, let's do that. Just check, try to take a breath, take one step back and go, how many things am I already signed up for? When is this actually scheduled for? What else is on my docket for that day? Like the calendar in your phone, that's the one that I keep. I've tried journals. I love notebooks. I love planners, all of those things. They last a week and then they're done and they never actually maintain. Whereas my phone, I can put it on my calendar. Everything gets on my calendar. If it doesn't get on the calendar right away, it doesn't end up happening. But then I can, when I'm like, oh, I want to do this. I've gone through this cycle enough times that I'm like, most of the time anyway, it doesn't always work, but most of the time I'm like, okay, let me check. What else am I able to do right now? And is this too much? Is this going to be too much 2 months from now? Maybe I shouldn't sign up for that then, so that we can avoid some of that overwhelm and burnout at that point. And maybe try to find one spot in life that, because, well, no, we'll just stick with that. Try to find something that you want to do and see if you actually can do it before you sign up for it, okay? We'll get into a couple of other details and other versions of that later on down the line, but that's my tip for today, is recognize where and when you do that, see if that is a pattern of yours, and see if you can find it. There's also ADHD coaches out there that can help you kind of work through this, that you can try to find. I'm working on building a program that I can try to do. I do have one on my website if you guys are looking for it, on just kind of how to triage your life, basically. It's Calm the Chaos, and it's on I'll put the link on the show notes. If you're interested in that, it's about an hour long, just kind of using my training in triaging from the medical perspective on how to handle looking at your general to-do list, if that would help you kind of organize it a little bit. If not, no worries. But try to do that and see if that helps. All right, my dears, I will talk to you next week. If this was helpful, as always, please share it with friends, family, whoever you think may benefit from it. Leave me a review, leave me a comment, share, like, subscribe, follow, whatever, all the things. All right, my dears. Oh, and as my legal disclaimer, remember this is only for educational and entertainment purposes. This is not a replacement for any kind of medical advice, nor an evaluation. If you seek more individualized care, as I mentioned earlier, please seek a qualified professional. All right, until next week. Bye, everybody.